This is ACC Nation, your source for ACC sports coverage. Connect with us at accnation.net. Listen to our podcast and streaming radio. Watch us on YouTube and follow us on your favorite social media outlet. Now, here's Will and Jim.
Pitt football. This is ACC Nation's preview of the Pitt Panthers with Chris Peak of 24/7's Panther Lair. Welcome, Chris. Appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, it's great to be back. This was fun last year. I look forward to doing it again.
That's Will Ojanen, and I'm Jim Quist. And let's get right into finding out what Pat Narduzzi has to put on the field this season.
Definitely, and good to talk to you again, Chris. Yeah, it was quite the year for Pitt. All the big highs of starting off 7-0, and then the bottom falling out. So excited to learn about what 2025 has in store. And let's start right up on the offense, because it ended up being Eli Holstein who started for most of the year, and then obviously got a little bit banged up, and then Nate Yarnell came in. So first things first, how's Holstein looked so far? And number two, should he get banged up again, who's QB2?
As far as how he looks, I think so. He had a couple injuries. There were two injuries that were never announced as concussions, but they probably pretty clearly were. They happened in a couple of games. And then when they played Louisville, the next to last game of the regular season, he busted up I think it was his ankle pretty bad. And I think that still slowed him down in spring ball. So he didn't really have a great spring camp. I think he was a little limited, but now he's healthy. It seems like he had a good summer, and it seems like he's kind of ready to go. He's got 10 games where he was the starter from last season. That's a lot of experience. Should have him better positioned to run Cade Bell's offense and kind of know what he's doing out there, provided he's healthy. If he gets hurt again or plays really poorly, it's interesting because there's two guys who are really the candidates there. One is Mason Heinschel, who's a true freshman, enrolled in January and got a lot of rave reviews. Like I say, Holstein maybe didn't have a great spring camp. Mason Heinschel had a great spring camp. And so he's like, everybody's really excited about him right now. Excited enough to unseat the returning starter? Probably not. If an injury happens, though, he could get the call. But then after spring camp, they went out and got another quarterback, Cole Gonzalez, who transferred from Oklahoma. But that's burying the lead because he was only in Oklahoma for the spring. Before that, he was at Western Carolina, where he played for Cade Bell for a couple years in Cade Bell's offense. So you have this veteran guy with a couple years of experience running this offense. He knows what he's doing. So it's almost this, like, I think it's a really good situation because you got Holstein coming back. He was 7-3 as a starter last year, got them off to a 7-0 start, looked really promising as a redshirt freshman. Great, exciting. If he can pick up where he left off, they're going to be good. If that doesn't work, you've got this star stud phenom freshman that everybody's excited about, probably the most excited they've been about a freshman quarterback since Kenny Pickett. He could step in and he could be great. And if that doesn't work out, you've at least got a guy who's got a lot of experience and knows how to run the offense. So no situation's perfect. There are holes. For all the nice things I just said, I could pick each guy apart too. But like, I think they've got a pretty good situation where it could work out well in a couple of different ways, if you know what I mean.
For sure. I think there's something to being a cult hero in certain spots where you go, but your first name goes by 3 letters, and then your last name is Reed. Here in Minnesota, we have Naz Reed. At Pitt, there's Des Reed, who is just a phenomenal. No one really knew what he was until he really stepped onto the field, and he was just an absolute stud for Pitt, leading the team in rushing and tied for the team in receptions. For someone who's listed on Pitt's website as 5'8" and I think 175 pounds soaking wet, how is he able to do all of this?
Yeah, I think that 5'8" is being generous. I don't think he's 5'8". I mean, he's a little guy. There's no question about it. But he's fast and he's tough, and he missed some time due to injury last year. But as I look at it, I don't chalk it up to anything other than running backs miss time due to injury. Like, I don't think he's fragile or injury prone more than anybody else. Like, you think of great Pitt running backs, like Izzy Abanikanda missed a game or two that year that he ran for like 1,700 yards. Like, guys miss time at running back, right? They get banged up. And so we all sort of assumed, oh, this guy's small. He can't carry the workload. He's not up to it. He was totally up to it. He's more than up to it. And I think he would tell you he's up to it. The coaches believe he's up to it, and he's tough enough to handle it. And he's a phenomenal player. I mean, he needs a little bit of daylight and he can go. I mean, one of the best plays of the season last year, they had a 4th and 1 against Cal at midfield, handed it off to him. He went off he went off tackle outside the right tackle, and there was nobody there, and he was gone. Nobody was catching him, and that's what he can do. I think he's got a legit chance, if he stays healthy, to have 2,000 all-purpose yards, because they have him return punts as well. And last year was the first time he ever did that in his career. I think he'll be better at that this year. He's gonna, I think there were only 2 other players in FBS who had more than 500 rushing and 500 receiving yards last season, and they both played all year. I think it was the Syracuse kid and the Arizona State kid, and they both played all season. Reed only played 11 games in 2024. So as long as he stays healthy, which is a caveat you would put on any running back, as long as he stays healthy, he should be one of the most productive all-purpose players in the ACC and the country again this year, because on a per game basis last year, he was on pace for 2,000 all-purpose yards. And there's only been 2 guys in Pitt history who've had 2,000 all-purpose yards in a season. One of them was Tony Dorsett. So, I mean, it's pretty good company to be in. And I think he's not a Tony Dorsett level player, but he's capable of putting up that kind of production and being one of the best in the conference.
Receiver wise, Kanata Mumfield's gone. He's in the NFL. Gavin Bartholomew is hoping to make the roster here for the Vikings. Is this a spot where a guy like Kenny Johnson could take a huge step forward this year?
He needs to. Like, he's a junior this year. He's supposed to be really good. He's been touted since he was a freshman. He's made some plays here and there over the last 2 years, but they need him to be the number 1 guy this year, because there really isn't another good option, at least that we've seen so far. They brought in some transfers and they have a couple freshmen and all this, but like, it's his time. It's his time to be the guy. I mean, you're a 3rd-year player now. You played a lot over the last 2 seasons. You need to step up, and he had a decent year last year, but this has to be like a 60 to 80 catch, 900 yard, 7 touchdown, 8 touchdown type of season for Kenny Johnson. He's got to be the man in this passing game, and there'll be plenty of passes to go around. There'll be plenty of opportunities and targets. He's got to step up and make the plays, because it's just not a receiver group that, as we see it right now, jumps off the page. And they didn't really have some star number 1 receiver last year. Kanata Mumfield was good and I think probably better than we gave him credit for, but there was nobody who could kind of like take over the game and dominate like that. And that's what they need Kenny Johnson to be this year, because I don't really see another good option on the roster. I see more solid guys. They have a couple ACC transfers, and Deuce Spann from Florida State and Blue Hicks from Louisville. And I think they'll be fine. I think Hicks will actually play pretty well for Pitt this year, but like, that big time wide receiver 1, like, it's got to be Kenny Johnson, because I don't think there's another good option on this team. So this is his time. He needs to step up.
Part of the reason Pitt fell off a little bit, obviously, is some of the injuries on the offensive line, and it feels like with some of the additions in the transfer portal, they've addressed some of that.
Yeah, I think that was one of their biggest areas of focus in the transfer portal this offseason, was finding more tackles, because they were in a spot last year where the Cal game, which was their 6th win of the season, the 6th game of the season, Branson Taylor, the left tackle, got hurt. And like, that one injury just turned it created chaos. I think over the next 7 games, I think they had like 5 different starting lineups on the offensive line. They shifted. They tried one guy at left tackle, then they moved Ryan Baer from right tackle to left tackle, and tried a new guy at right tackle, and then tried a different guy at right tackle, and then went back to the other guy at right tackle, and none of it worked, because they just didn't have the depth. And so they came into this season and they said, we need to have more depth at tackle. So they brought in 2 tackles. Kendall Stanley from Charlotte started every game last year there. And then Jeff Percy at Michigan made 3 starts, but played a lot for Michigan over the past few years. And so those guys, plus Ryan Baer coming back, plus those guys who got experience last year, should give this group more depth that they can withstand an injury if it happens. And it always seems to happen at Pitt. A lot of teams lose offensive linemen to injury, but Pitt just, I can't remember the last year they got through a season with like 6 or fewer guys making starts. Like, it's just every year. And it's helped them build depth. I mean, because when one guy gets hurt, a new guy gets experience and all that. But this year they should have the experience depth to get through it if they need to turn to someone else. And then they also brought in an interior guy, Keith Gouveia from Richmond, who could play guard or center. So I think they've shored up that position group overall. They should be better, and not just better in the top line, but better deeper, so that if they run into a problem, they've got the horses to handle it.
Let's switch over to defense, and I want to start in the middle because this is where the strength of this Pitt defense is to me is the linebacker. And I know Kyle Lewis is rated as one of the best linebacker. I think he was the All-American if I'm not mistaken. Plus,
Mhm.
the other guys there are really really good too. What about this linebacking group makes them so good?
The biggest thing is they're athletic. Like they're not the biggest guys. I mean, I think if you compare Kyle Lewis to some of the other really good linebackers in the country. I mean, he's going to be smaller than most of those guys. Rasheem Biles is not that big. He's the other outside linebacker. Braylon Lovelace is the middle linebacker. He's not that big either, but they're all really athletic and they're able to turn it into they're able to make plays. And that was what they did last year. Kyle Lewis last year had 100 tackles, 15 and a half tackles for loss, 7 sacks, and 4 interceptions, plus another interception on an extra point or 2 point conversion by, I think, at Boston College, which should count as an interception, but they don't count it. But either way, that stat line was, I think, if you look across the country, nobody else really had a stat line that sort of diverse that just sort of did everything and filled the box score like Kyle Lewis did. And I've looked throughout like Pitt history. I'm not sure I can find another better overall stat line for a Pitt linebacker. I mean, it was truly one of the best seasons by a Pitt linebacker in school history. But then on the other side, you have Rasheem Biles, who had 80 tackles, 15 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, and he had a pick six. And then Braylon Lovelace, playing as a reserve, had 10 and a half tackles for loss and like 4 sacks. I mean, just super productive across the board to the point where, like, and I've talked with other Pitt historians, like, we can't really remember, at least this century, a group of linebackers at Pitt that looks as good as this one does. I think this is the best group of linebackers I've seen since I've covered Pitt, just all around, like all three of them being that good. And I think they should be one of the best trios in the ACC. All three of those guys had pick sixes against Syracuse last year in that like ridiculous game uh, where they picked off what's his name who transferred from Ohio State, their
Kyle
quarterback.
McCord.
Kyle McCord. All I could think was Kyle Flood. I'm like, no, not the Rutgers coach. No, Kyle McCord. Yeah, they picked off Kyle McCord like 4 times, and 3 of them were pick sixes. It was those linebackers. It was Kyle Lewis, Rasheem Biles, and Braylon Lovelace. They're just playmakers. This staff, and it took them a little time because linebacker wasn't always a strength of this defense. Actually, for the first probably 5 years, 6 years of Pat Narduzzi's time, it was the defensive line and the secondary, and the linebackers were just like kind of being carried by the guys in front of them and the guys behind them. Now they've just figured out a mold of the type of guys they want. And it's a lot of times it's guys who like other schools look at and they're like, that guy's too slow to be a safety and too small to be a linebacker. And Pitt looks at him and they're like, that's exactly what we want for outside linebacker. And so Kyle Lewis, I mean, played all over the defense in high school. Braylon Lovelace was a middle linebacker, but he played at like a small school where you just have to have your best player in the middle of the field. He at a bigger school, he probably would have been a safety. Rasheem Biles was like a safety. This is the kind of guy they've gone after, and they've found their type, and they've been really good at identifying those guys and then evaluating them and coaching them up, because the next couple classes of linebackers they brought in since those guys are all pretty good too. So it's a strength. I think they've got one of the better linebacker groups in the ACC, and I think you can make a case that by the end of the season, it wouldn't be a shock if Lewis and Biles are both first team all conference players. I don't think that'll happen. I don't think the ACC and ACC voters would ever put 2 Pitt players at the same position on their all conference team, but I think they'll produce at a level that would deserve some consideration.
Yeah, especially if Carolina has a big season this year. Pitt will be,
Yeah, it's
you
I
know
mean,
where
like
I'm going with that.
well, it's funny. I mean, like you could have made a good
Boy.
case to like Kyle Lewis, and Kyle Lewis was probably hurt by Pitt's collapse late last season, because you could have made a pretty good case that he was the defensive player of the year in the ACC. But when you lose 5 games in a row to end the season, like teams, and not that the Boston College defensive end was undeserving. I mean, the kid was a great player. He had like 4 sacks against Pitt. But like as Pitt tailed off, I think that hurt some of those individual accolades. But I mean, he was if they won a couple of those final games, if they went like 9-3, I think Lewis would be your ACC defensive player of the year, because how can you deny a guy with that stat line, the 100 tackles, 15 and a half tackles for loss, 7 sacks and 4 picks? I mean, he did it all. It was a sensational season.
So the defense finished top 10 nationally in yards per carry against. I think it was just over 3 yards a carry. Plus, they were third in the ACC in sacks with this defensive line. They returned a few starters. Plus, they picked up a couple guys in the portal. So it feels like it's business as usual with this D line.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Like the two stats you just said, like the rush defense and the sacks. Like rush defense, Narduzzi's defenses have always been good against the rush, even going back to Michigan State. Is because everything is geared on stopping the run. The safeties are lined up like 7 yards off the line of scrimmage or something. Like they just always load up against that. And then the sacks, this is like actually one of the problems with the defense last year, and all those stats that I just rattled off that were so great about Kyle Lewis having 7 sacks and Rasheem Biles had 6 and Braylon Lovelace had 4.5. That was like, the I think 2 out of the top 3 guys in sacks on the team were linebackers, and the leading defensive end in sacks only had 6. And of those 6, 3 came in one game. The one of the big issues with this team last year with this defense is that the defensive ends weren't getting any kind of pressure. They just were not consistently getting there. They would get pressures, but they wouldn't finish and get sacks. And so, I said earlier, the offensive line was one of the main priorities and areas of focus in the portal. The other one was defensive end. And last year they brought in 3 DNs out of the portal. Like 2 of them had never played before, and 1 had played like in a 3-4 scheme at Kansas State, so it wasn't a good fit. This year they got 3 guys who have all played a lot, and 2 guys who played a lot, and then the youngest guy, Jaden Moore, coming from Oregon, is like he's a small sample size, but like comparable numbers to some of the best pass rushers in the Big Ten. And I think Oregon was disappointed to lose him because they liked his potential. They needed to beef up that group. That the defensive ends had to get more pressure, like they did when Pitt's defenses were really good in 2019, 2020. Guys like Rashad Weaver and Patrick Jones and Haba Baldonado getting 7, 8, 9 sacks in a season, 10 sacks, 11 sacks. They need to get back to that for this defense to really be good. They need some of those sacks to shift up to the defensive ends, because that opens up so much more for the linebackers. It forces more bad passes if you're getting that pressure off the edge, and you can, you have your chance to get more interceptions and takeaways. The transfers are going to play a huge role. Jimmy Scott's the leading guy returning from last year. He'll be a starter, but they'll have a 4-man rotation with Scott and 3 transfers, and they need to get pressure. And I think their D tackles too are going to be pretty good this year. They're almost all former 4-star guys. I think all but 1 are homegrown recruited guys. I think they'll get some production out of the D tackles too. I think their defensive line will be a lot better than it was a year ago. And it might end up resulting in the linebackers having fewer stats, and hurting their All-American cause and all that stuff, but it might make the defense better overall.
I see a huge loss in Donovan McMillan to the graduation, but they loaded up in the portal. Plus, when I was going through this, the name Cruz Brookins came up quite a bit from Pat Narduzzi. So I feel, yeah, even with that loss, it feels like they should be deeper. But I'm just wondering if Brookins is going to be like a name we need to know for the season too.
I think so. He so they do this thing in practice, spring camp and training camp. Defenders who get a turnover, and not during either inside run or 7-on-7 or the 11-on-11 drills. If you get a turnover, fumble, or an interception, they give you a sticker. It says takeaway, and you can put it on your helmet every time you get one. And it's this very sort of visual representation of who's making plays in practice. And Cruz Brookins, for the last 3 camps, it's already starting now. It happened last spring and it happened last summer. I mean, his helmet is, I think by the end of spring camp, 15 practices, he had 7 or 8 of those stickers on his helmet. There's some guys just have a knack for making the plays. Pat Narduzzi said it today that last year he felt like their defense had 19 dropped interceptions was the number he came up with, which seems like a lot. But he was like, but Cruz is just not that guy. Like, some guys are just able to make those plays. And he had 2 picks last year. He's going to step into that role. And it's an interesting role, that boundary safety, because that's the one that really plays close to the line of scrimmage. So you mentioned McMillan. He had 115 tackles last year, at 100 plus the year before. 2015, Jordan Whitehead playing that role had like 100 plus tackles. It's a tackling machine kind of position. And I think Cruz Brookins is a good fit for that. And then I think he's going to force some turnovers and make some plays. Safety is another one of those positions where I think they've really honed in on what they like, and they've recruited well. Because if you go back to, I mean, Whitehead was great, a great player the first 3 years in Narduzzi era. He's still playing in the NFL. But you fast forward to like 2018, 2019, you got Damar Hamlin, who everybody knows plays for the Bills now. Paris Ford, who was a first-team all-conference player in 2019. I think he had as many pick sixes as he had ejections, and he had a lot of both that year. it made him a bit of a fan favorite because he earned his ejections. They weren't like cheap, like, oh, did he graze his helmet? No, that dude laid people out. And you hate him if you're on the other team, but you like him if he's on your team. But they had him the next, and then you get into like after those two guys, DeMar Hamlin and Paris Ford, they had Brandon Hill and Eric Hallett, who were both really good. Hallett was the defensive MVP, or was the MVP of the ACC championship game, which I just learned the other day. He's the only defensive player to ever be named MVP of the ACC championship game. So I don't know. Do you guys know that? Little trivia there.
I did not.
I not to get too sidetracked, but as I was researching that, I found out that in like the second ever ACC championship game, it was like Wake Forest and somebody, and I think Wake won. It was a 6-3 game, and so the MVP was a kicker. So
I think it was Georgia Tech, maybe that year.
That sounds right. I think it might have been. So Eric Hallett was not the first non-offensive player to win the ACC championship game MVP, but he was the first defensive player. That kicker got there before him. But anyway, so you got Hamlin and Ford, you got Hallett and Hill. The last couple of years, you've had Javon McIntyre and Donovan McMillan, like you mentioned. And now you're segueing right into Cruz Brookins and McIntyre, who I think will be good, really good. And behind them, you've got Jesse Anderson, who's another young guy. And, the freshman they brought in this year, Josh Garrier, looks like he's going to be a stud. They've got it rolling at a couple of these defensive spots where they've just found what they like, and they're doing really well with it. They're sending guys to the NFL. They're getting a lot of good production, and safety is one of those spots where they are just rolling, and that's going to continue this year for sure.
Chris, we're all about getting sidetracked here. So, I mean, you're
it's our specialty.
Yes, it is. And those kind of tidbits are great. I love that stuff. Hey, I'm going to make no bones about it. I'm not going to be that guy, that keyboard warrior who's sitting down in Granny's, basement, typing away and taking my cheap shots at anybody and not standing up and saying, hey, I'm the one who's saying it. I'm the one who's doing it. You can put a face with it. I've been critical of Pat Narduzzi in the past, and primarily because I look at Pitt and I go, this team can be an absolute roller coaster, and it drives me crazy. It's got to drive fans crazy. The fact that we started talking about how you can just drop off all these games all at once. Is there a solution to this, and is it being fixed, and is it going in the right direction? Because everybody in this conference ought to be saying, hey, Pitt ought to be playing top-notch ball and be right there in that top tier every single season. And I know the fans want that. I'd like to see it. But it's that roller coaster thing. It just drives me nuts.
Yeah. Oh, and it drives the fans nuts too. I mean, I think it's hard because every year you can look at with Narduzzi, I mean, there's some sort of caveat to add. 2019, I think they went 8-5 or something. They lost to Miami and Boston College that year. Those teams only made it to a bowl game because they beat Pitt. Like those teams went 6-6, and you lose to those teams.
Yep.
Like 2020, they lose at Boston College on a missed extra point. Even 2021, they win the ACC championship game. They lost at home to Western Michigan that year and blew a game against Miami where they just played like crap in the first quarter and could never come back from it. That team went 10-2, and like you don't take anything away. That's a great season, but like, and you hate to say, boy, what could have been, but they make it in a 14. I mean, they definitely make it in a 12-team playoff regardless. They make the 14 playoff if you just don't lose to Western Michigan at home. Like that's not like what are we asking for? 2022, they follow up the ACC championship. They go 9-4. Like, well, that's a good season. Yeah, except they lost to Georgia Tech, literally the Saturday after Jeff Collins got fired at home. They lose that game. They go down to Louisville. They throw like multiple interceptions at the goal line. So there again, like that's a team that went 8-4 in the regular season, should have been 10-2 and back in Charlotte again playing for the 8, but they blow these bad games. 2023, they go 3-9. We know what happened there. And then last year, like what a great start. They win at Chapel Hill for the first time ever. They go undefeated in non-conference for the first time ever. And yet you got injuries, and these injuries like cause big problems. But like there's no reason to lose to Virginia last year. There's no reason to lose at Boston College. And they had the Clemson game won. So even with those injuries, there's no reason you should have gone 7-5 in the regular season. Like that should have been a team that won at least 9 games after starting 7-0. And then you go to this bowl game against Toledo, like the day after Christmas in Detroit. Like, is there a more depressing combination of words than what I just said? Bowl game against Toledo in Detroit the day after Christmas, and you lose it in like 6 overtimes when the entire country is saying, why are you kicking? Why aren't you going for it in this? And so that's the thing. I mean, and we just went through how many seasons? 6 seasons, 7 seasons of Pitt football, where every year there's this spot. You're like, why are you punching yourself in the face? Like, just stop punching yourself in the face, and you could actually have a pretty solid go of it. You know, like you could be one of the top programs in the ACC.
Please.
If you just stop punching yourself in the face. Like, it doesn't seem like we're asking you to do that much, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's the insanity that I see. And, you know, I get to stand back from this, you know, because I'm not locked into being a fan of any one team within the conference. So I'm rooting for everybody. And I know as maddening as that sounds, it works for me. Okay. And I want to see teams succeed. And when I see that, it's like, what is going on here? And as you just pointed out, this is not just one or twosies. There's a sixies here, and that's some crazy stuff. Anyway, I know I brought this up the last time you were on, and it's just it's so frustrating. I know I'm feeling you, fans. I'm feeling you. I really do. I feel for you, and I think it just needs to be resolved. Daggone it. So anyway,
well, and there's so much talk about like Miami and Florida State. Like, have you done your part to help carry the conference consistently outside of like the Jameis Winston year? Have you done your part? Like, we're all sitting back talking about the ACC this, the ACC that. Well, Miami and Florida State haven't done their part, but I think you can drill down to that next tier of like Pitt, Virginia Tech, like maybe like NC State or Carolina. Like, have you done your part? Like,
where
guys
are they?
should be a win or two better every single year. And Virginia Tech would get those like courtesy votes in the AP poll every year. And by week 4, they've dropped out. Like, and Pitt, I mean, Pitt never got the courtesy votes. You know, they didn't get the obligatory Virginia Tech or Miami votes. But it was the same thing. Like, there's an expectation here. You were brought to this conference for a reason. And Miami and Florida State have totally dropped the ball and not carried the conference the way they were expected to, the way they were supposed to. But that next tier, Pitt, Virginia Tech, Carolina, you know, like where are you guys? Like you have an obligation. You're part of the blame. You know what I mean? You're a culprit here too.
And obligation is the right word here, Chris. They are obligated to deliver, and daggone, they need to step up. I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, we can go on about this all night, to be honest with you. But I want to get into something here. We've talked to an awful lot of people in doing the reviews of what's coming up. And I know that you and Will have gone through all these players and transfer portal people and stuff. One of the things that we're seeing this year from the majority, I'd say the vast majority of teams, is there's a lot of people on the transfer portal list for each team, which is maddening for people such as yourself who are trying to cover it and go like, okay, who's this guy? Where did he come from? Are you finding that's the case with Pitt this season as well?
Partially. I mean, like, yeah. I mean, it's I'm thinking about like last Thursday night, they had an open basketball practice. And we got to see the basketball team, and I was looking, and it's like 9 newcomers between transfers and recruits. Boy. But what I was looking for, I had a list where I had written down who all the ACC teams brought to Media Day. Because like I think all but 3 of them brought a quarterback, and I was interested because Pitt didn't take Eli Holstein. So I was trying to do some comparisons, and it was basically like everybody who had a returning starter or quarterback took their quarterback except Pitt. But what I found is like, there were like 6 teams, I want to say, don't quote me on that number, who brought transfer quarterbacks, like brand new guys who have never even played for their school, but they're and they're expecting them to start. I mean, I think Cal took 2 transfer quarterbacks to ACC media. I don't even know what's going on. You know,
it's crazy. It's just part of the new way that things are. Period.
Yeah.
Good, Will.
I was just going to say they're really carrying out that QB competition if they're bringing both quarterbacks to media day.
Right, exactly.
Let's see which one of you does best.
I had to like do a double take. I'm like, what? Somebody, I forget who it was. It was Carolina. Somebody brought a quarterback who got there, like enrolled after spring camp, or maybe it was Cal that did that. I'm like, wait, this guy didn't even go through spring camp, and you're taking him to media day? Like,
wow. Well, maybe maybe that's a good way to lock somebody in. I don't know. Give them a little taste of what's to come. Let's get into the schedule here and do a thumbs up, thumbs down, and the good old Will Waggle, which is I'm not really sure.
So, I feel like I have a lot of waggles on this one because I have no idea with some of these teams.
I'm telling you, man. I looked at the schedule before we started doing the program, and I'm going over it again, and I'm going. This is kind of a gauntlet in a way. I mean, this is not going to be a cakewalk. I mean, there's some games in here that are intended to be, but for the most part, there's some tough competition going on this season in the ACC. I like the way this schedule lays out. It's good if Pitt can prove itself through this. Hey, playoff time is not out of the question here at all. Let's start out on August 30th with Pitt and Duquesne. It's a hometown big brother, little brother thing. 12 noon ACC network. That's either a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and I know which way we're going.
Yeah, we got to thumbs up that one. Look, I've seen Pitt lose to an FCS team, but I don't think they're going to lose.
Man, not this one. So September 6th, it's Central Michigan coming to town to take on Pitt. Another 12 nooner. ESPNU is where that one's going to be. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Yeah.
There's another one. All right. This is the game that I'm looking forward to, the backyard brawl. I mean, I love this. I hope they keep this thing going forever and a day. This is what football is for me. Pitt at West Virginia, a 3:30 game. It's going to be on ESPN. You know this is going to draw a lot of eyes. Wow. This might be a waggle. Or is it a thumbs up, thumbs down, Chris?
This is tough. Pitt hasn't won in Morgantown since 2007, but God, I feel like every quote I see from Rich Rodriguez is basically saying his team stinks and he doesn't think they're any good. Like everything he seems to be saying in camp is that they're not good. So on paper, it should be a thumbs up, but you get on the road in a rivalry game, it's closer to a waggle, but I'm going to go thumbs up. I think I'm going to go with what it should be on paper.
Okay. So if you win that game, that elusive top 25 mention kicks in. Okay, I'm just saying. I'm saying that at least you get some votes. Maybe if you're not in the top 25, you're just outside on the receiving votes category. So you're getting close. Okay,
if they win by a lot. If they get like an impressive win, I think they could get because I don't think they're going to be anywhere close to receiving votes preseason with the way they ended. So
probably
they're not gonna make up any ground beating Duquesne in Central Michigan. So
no,
but they'll get the next week is when they'll jump in.
Yes. Okay. So we get them open here. And then we go on the 27th of September. This is where it starts getting interesting. Louisville takes on Pitt at Pitt. And this is going to be, I think, a really good ACC battle.
Yeah. I think Jeff Brom's the man. I think he might be, like a top 2, top 3 coach in the conference. I just think he is a stud. And so I'm probably waggle shading down just because Pitt beat them 2 years ago, but that wasn't the same kind of situation. And last year Louisville killed Pitt, and I don't know. That's going to be tough. Even though it's at home, I think that's going to be a tough one.
As we say in-house, wiggles, waggles, but they don't fall down. Anyway, coming up on October 4th, it's Boston College at Pitt. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Narduzzi's 1-3 against Boston College. How can you be 1-3 against Boston College?
Unbelievable.
Thumbs up. I mean, is what it should be, but like 1-3.
Oh man. Okay. Well,
And the only time they beat them is when they went 3-9. Like one of their 3 wins 2 years ago, they beat Boston College. It's like when they're good, they can't beat Boston College, but when they're terrible, they can.
All right.
Anyway, sorry.
That's that roller coaster thing I'm talking about. It's maddening. On the the next game up is Pitt traveling to Tallahassee to take on Florida State. Nobody has a clue as to what the Noles are going to actually be bringing to the field this season. I don't even have an inkling. So thumbs up, thumbs down.
How is Thomas Castellanos the guy here? How is this the best? And
question.
I say this as a big fan. I like that guy. I loved watching him at Boston College. But you're Florida State. Is that really the best you can do? I said the same thing last year. It's like, DJ, this is the best you can do? Really? There's so many other, like Florida State couldn't outbid Duke for the Tulane kid. Really?
Yeah, that's where I would have gone. Yeah.
This is where I'm wondering if Norvell seats a little more. I mean, they probably can't afford to buy him out, especially if they want to leave the league. But
I mean, if they can't buy a better quarterback than Thomas Castellanos, I mean, I don't think they can afford to buy Norvell out. I'm gonna go thumbs up on that. I think Pitt wins down there. I think they're hitching the wagon to the wrong quarterback again, and I think they boo Mike Norvell off the field by the end of that one.
Wow. I'm going to be pushing the record button at that point. Okay. Next up, it's Pitt at Syracuse. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thumbs up. It's Syracuse. I mean, Pitt. I mean, Narduzzi's lost to Syracuse, lost them in 17, lost to them at Yankee Stadium 2 years ago. But no, come on, you have to beat Boston College. You have to beat Syracuse. Like if you are who you think you are or who you want to be, those are the games you have to win. So I'll thumbs up on it.
So we're getting pretty close here to being bowl eligible. So you know. This is where the curse comes into play. NC State comes to visit, and this may be. I would consider, Will just brought up hot seat for coaches. I would consider this a hot seat for both coaches in this particular instance. If neither one of them deliver in this game, and especially if it's an ugly loss. I think there's two coaches who may be getting phone calls. That's me.
Yeah.
And again, I'm tough on those guys. So
well, I don't know Dave Doran's contract situation, and I think Narduzzi has enough years left to be safe. But NC State, Narduzzi's never beaten them. I think he's lost to them twice. And Pitt has had a weird thing with NC State. They've won the last few games in basketball, but it took them like almost 10 years to beat NC State in basketball. I think they beat them like the very first time after they joined the conference. And then, so there's this weird thing with NC State, but I don't know. The last time they were here, I think was in the COVID year, and that was weird.
Everything that year.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I guess I would have to waggle on that one, but
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's reasonable. I think that's a good waggle, to be honest with you. That's one that's we'll know more like about 2 weeks before, two games before we'll know which one of these teams is going to take this one.
Well, you know why that one will end up being a loss. So they'll lose to Louisville. They'll beat Boston College at home, and then they'll go on the road and beat Florida State and Syracuse. They'll win 3 in a row, 2 of those games away from home. The two most recent. People start getting excited again. They'll come home and play NC State, and they'll blow it, and they'll lose by like 3 or something like that. So
I mean, State's replacing both coordinators, so really, who knows what they're going to be?
The script has been written. It was written as it's a story as old as time. Pitt blows one at home, and then goes on the road and wins a couple and gets people marginally excited again, and then they come home and blow it. So that's the way it goes.
This is horrible.
I I mean, like, I have mountains of evidence to support this. I could like pick a year, and I will give you the example how this, like, pick a year since 2005, and I will be like, oh, well, that when they did this and this and this,
oh
they went on
man.
the road, and then they came home and blew it against Rutgers or somebody.
Let's get out of this Pitt here. No puns intended. Pitt at Stanford.
So they'll go back out there. All the Pitt fans will expect them to lose. They'll win that one, and they'll
okay.
go out
Yeah.
God, they're gonna win by like 3 touchdowns. It's gonna be like not even close.
And
they'll have more points than there are fans in the stands.
Yeah, right.
Right at the edge there. I thought I was going to have to depart the camera. All right, next week is open after that. This is where it starts getting hairy a little bit here. These last 3 games are tough, and that's probably an understatement. But man, if you can pull off 1 or 2 wins in this last 3, you're going someplace. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any doubt about this. Notre Dame at Pitt. Look, I understand a lot of the blowing smoke up people's skirts about Notre Dame every year. I get it. I really do. But I just don't know that they are where I think they tend to be a little bit overrated most of the time. And this is a game that I think that if Pitt is clicking and Notre Dame comes into town, this could be a big upset. What do you think?
Oh yeah, huge upset. Let's see. By what I have them so far, they would be 7-2 at this point, which means, I mean, God, if you could get this to 8-2,
wow. This would be a wonderful experience.
See, I mean, like there's the Pitt history part that says they'll beat them and then lose to Georgia Tech.
Of course.
So, but I'm going to go the other way. Actually, I'm going to say they lose this game, but they lose it. They played Notre Dame in 2018, the year they won the Coastal, and they lost out there, but it was like 19-15 or something like that. It was a battle. Mm-hmm. They really went back and forth, and like everybody kind of came out of that game like, well, that sucks they lost, but kind of feel good about it. And then they went on a run and won the Coastal. So I actually think they're going to lose this game in that way. They'll lose by like less than a touchdown. It'll be close. They'll fall to 7-3. They'll drop in the polls a little bit. But I think they'll find a way to lose that one. I'm going to go.
Okay. So if they win that one, I'm going to demand that they rename the stadium Heinz, just to make it easier for me. Nice. Yeah. All right. The next game up is Pitt at Georgia Tech, and of course, this is the one that you got to keep an eye. You got to keep an eye on these guys down in Atlanta. You really do.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I think Pitt wins this one. It's funny. I feel like it's over under 1.5 of Haynes King and Eli Holstein. How many of them are playing by the time this game comes around? Because I feel like they're sort of very similar. Like they're pretty good when they're healthy and they can run a little bit and got nice arms. And I think Eli might be a little bit bigger than Haynes King, but like, I don't know if they're both going to be standing by the time this game gets here in the, next to last week of the regular season. So I hope they are, because I think it'd be really fun. They actually like train together. Eli told us this last week. He made a mention that he like trains with a guy who also trains Haynes King. So they've like overlapped a lot and run into each other. So I hope they're both playing. My guess is that they won't. I'm going to bet on Haynes King being the guy who's out and give Pitt a win here. So they get to 8-3. Going into the finale.
And the final game, Miami comes to town. Again, you get these people, you get them to come into your home stadium, maybe you have a shot at taking them out. Who knows?
The key is that you get them in the finale. If you can get Miami in the regular season finale, you're 50-50 before you even start talking about personnel or rosters. Like the last 3 times Pitt beat Miami, they beat them in 2022 regular season finale down there. The 2017 game when Miami was undefeated at Heinz Field, beat them in the regular season finale. And then, what's the other one? 2014. They went down there regular season finale. You want to get Miami in the last game of the regular season because there's a better than even chance that they'll have quit by then. And if they've quit, then you can do it. And so I'm giving this one a thumbs up because I'm going to bet on Miami quitting. Who's the quarterback? Which quarterback did they bring in?
Carson
Beck. Yeah.
Yes. See, Cam Ward couldn't get them to the playoffs, and I don't think Carson Beck's as good as Cam Ward. So I don't think this Miami team's going to I think he's fine, but I don't think he's as good as Cam Ward. So I say, I think Miami has fallen off I think they've got like 3 or 4 losses by that point. They've pulled to Miami and given up. Pitt gets the win. They finish 9-3 because 2 of their 3 losses are in the conference. They're not going to make the ACC championship game, but 9-3 will get them into a solid bowl, a Sun Bowl or something like that. And they'll have a chance for like a respectable 9-3, 9-4, and 10-3 season.
And Pat Narduzzi gets a 20-year extension. So.
You know what, man? If you can go 9-10 wins on a consistent basis, you take it. Because 9-10 wins on a consistent basis, you'll get to Charlotte one every 3 or 4 years. And if you do that, you're 60 minutes away from making the playoffs.
That's not bad. And with this new revenue sharing, you got more eyes on you and making more money too. So that's a good thing. Yep. That is never a bad thing. So, Chris, thank you so much for joining us and talking about Pitt Panthers football and sharing some interesting perspectives and thoughts and some tidbits too, taking us off the rails again like we normally go. That's all a good thing. Chris Peak of 24/7's Panthers Lair, thank you, sir. Appreciate you joining us.
Chris.
Thanks, guys.
ACC Nation, your source for ACC sports coverage with Will and Jim. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on our podcast, streaming radio, and YouTube. Connect with us on Blue Sky, Reddit, Instagram, Threads, Mastodon, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn.